Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
April 12, 2012, the Preet to Vox edition. And we begin with that lead story as Vox Media is buying the owner of Preet Bharara's podcast empire. Cafe Studios is a publisher of the podcast hosted by Preet Bharara. And although the company did not disclose financial terms of the deal, Mr. Bharara will join Vox Media as a host, co-founder, and creative director of Cafe, which will continue to exist as its own brand. Bharara has gained a lot of notoriety with his podcast and certainly as a podcast producer and owner of my own podcast network. I'm certainly happy that he was able to move over to Vox and hopefully cash in. So congratulations to Preet Bharara and moving over to Vox. That story came from the Wall Street Journal, as to all stories today. Next up, CEOs plan a new push on voter suppression legislation. Dozens of chief executives and other senior leaders gathered on Zoom this weekend to plot what they should do next about voter suppression laws underway in Texas and other states. Several CEOs urged the leaders to collectively call for greater voter access, not suppressing voter access aimed at minorities. The businesses dropping the issues will probably be seen as discriminatory going forward. A full statement could come out earlier this week and would build on one that came out from 72 black executives last month in wake of the change in voter suppression laws in Georgia. More companies and leaders have spoken out on this issue in recent weeks, and their stands have drawn the ire of Republicans who say the companies are miscasting the matter and the companies shouldn't speak out. Meanwhile, progressive advocates who oppose the laws said that the leaders are taking actions, but just not strong enough. Next up, from also the Wall Street Journal, an interesting article about Google and a secret program it had called Project Bernanke. It was revealed in an antitrust case in the state of Texas, and it revealed that Google for years has operated a secret program that used data from past bids in the company's digital advertising exchange to allegedly give its own ad buying system an advantage over competitors. The documents show that the interplay between Google's role as the operator of a major ad exchange, think Google Ads, which Google likens to the New York Stock Exchange in marketing documents, but Google also acts as an ad buyer in its own right, selling ads on its own properties. The state of Texas alleges that Google used its access to data from publishers' ad servers, where more than 90% of large publishers use Google to sell their digital ad space, to guide advertisers toward a price that they would have to bid in order to secure a successful placement. Very interesting. And finally, as supply chains become even more important after as we come out of the pandemic, a software company, Blue Yonder, is planning to go IPO. It's the latest tech provider to look at a public stock offering. And given its work in supply chains, it's drawn a lot of interest. Blue Yonder said that it plans to go public, and with the upturn, or rather upheaval in the supply chains, any company that has this type of software will have a competitive advantage. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.